Okay, so before we officially begin, let us go through some reminders with our event on the PACMRI 2025 Master Class. So our theme for this afternoon is Advertising Creativity, Revisiting the Hierarchy of Effects Model. My name is John Lawrence Robes and I will be your host and moderator for this afternoon. Now, before we officially begin, I would like to remind each and every one of some reminders, particularly on our disclaimers, that the views and opinions expressed of the panel are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities that they represent. Furthermore, we would like to also remind you all about some of our netiquettes, particularly for our Zoom participants to kindly make sure that your audio is on mute and your video is turned off once you enter the room. You may also use the chat box to send in your questions, and later on, during the open forum, you may also use the raise hand function if you wish to ask your questions live. Most importantly, let us all be respectful and mindful throughout our session. Thank you, and we will begin our session in just a few moments. Okay, since it's already 2:05 on my clock, I think it's about time that we begin our event for this afternoon. Once again, good afternoon everyone. On behalf of the Philippine Association for Communication and Media Research Incorporated, or PACMRI, welcome to the 2025 Masterclass webinar series. Our second masterclass is titled Advertising Creativity, Revisiting the Hierarchy of Effects Model. This masterclass seeks to shed light on how advertising creativity is positioned in audience communication processes as opposed to generally outcome-based perspectives. It also extends the process of ACFX towards the stages of the hierarchy of effects, or HOE, by the inclusion of conditional media effects and media response states, which are major components of the differential susceptibility to media effects model, or DSMM. Once again, my name is John Lawrence Robes and I will be your host and moderator for this event. Before we proceed, we would like to acknowledge our institutional members who could join us today. We are grateful as well to all participants joining us via Zoom, and thank you for taking your time to be with us this afternoon. At this point, to formally open today's masterclass, we are honored to hear from the president of PACMRI, Dr. Chen San Pascual. However, Dr. Chen has sent over a video given that she is currently in the AUNQA Assessors General Assembly at Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Let us hear from Dr. Chen San Pascual.
Good afternoon. Magandang hapon. Welcome to the second session of this year's PACMRI Masterclass Series. PACMRI, or the Philippine Association for Communication and Media Research Incorporated, is a University of the Philippines-based non-stock organization. that aims to advance knowledge in communication and media phenomena involving the Filipinos and the Philippines. Founded in 2019 by the University of the Philippines Department of Communication Research, PACMRI envisions a knowledge-based society that values, uses, and innovates communication and media research. PACMRI endeavors to promote the systematic study of developments, changes, and challenges in Philippine communication and media, to contribute to enhancing the competencies of local communication and media researchers in conducting and disseminating scholarly works, and to facilitate the engagement of communication and media research practitioners and institutions in Philippine society. The PACMRI Masterclass series, one of our flagship projects, aims to expound on the various philosophical, contextual, and practical concerns that inform and elevate the studies that we conduct. We at PACMRI hope that this series results in a vibrant and rigorous communication and media research culture in our country. This afternoon's Masterclass session is PACMRI's first collaboration with the De La Salle University. No less than the chair of the DLSU Department of Marketing and Advertising will be walking us through as we revisit and reimagine the transformative power of creativity. So please invite your peers to join us. They can still log in and catch up. By the way, all our online masterclass sessions are available in PACMRI's digital platforms, and these are accessible for free, and you are all welcome to view and to share our content. Mabuhay ang pananaliksik at mga mananaliksik ng komunikasyon at media. Let us all have an engaging afternoon.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chen, for setting the tone for today's discussion. Actually, this is quite exciting, as even for me, that's not only coming from the marketing aspect, but also a researcher myself, as I am currently taking up my doctorate. And so this is something that I personally am excited about, and I hope that the rest of you are as excited as I am, as is with Dr. Chen San Pascual. Without further ado, let us now proceed with our masterclass proper. We are privileged to hear from no less than Dr. Miguel Paolo Paredes. Dr. Paolo traces the delicate threads between creativity, design, and communication. Quiet spaces where imagination meets understanding and ideas take on shape and story. He holds a bachelor's degree in fine arts, major in advertising arts from the University of Santo Tomas, and a master's degree in communication and a doctorate in business administration from De La Salle University. Today, as associate professor and chair of the Department of Marketing and Advertising at De La Salle University, he continues to explore how art and intellect might better speak to one another. In 2024, he was recognized by the National Academy of Science and Technology for his contributions to research and scholarship. Beyond the university, he actively supports initiatives that strengthen the Philippine creative industries while remaining deeply engaged in his own practice as a composer and visual artist. His work reflects a simple conviction: creativity is more than expression. It is inquiry, dialogue, and a way of seeing the world anew. Let us now hear from Dr. Paolo Paredes. Let's give him a virtual round of applause.
Hi. I didn't know if I was going to be doing the emoji then for reaction. So hello, good afternoon everyone. Thank you for your inviting me here today. Let me have my let me share my screen first. So There. So welcome to Advertising Creativity. I come here and join you right now, just like a colleague or a friend, to be able to share with you my journey of inquiry, right? This presentation siguro is based on maybe like 2 or 3 papers, some concept papers, some drafts that have never been gotten back to, all encompassing siguro this point in my life wherein I was interested to look at advertising creativity. Uh, you may ask siguro first of all, why even try to figure out creativity? Because all of us here, we all know what creativity is, diba? I know what creativity is, whatever, right? Uh, but when it comes to the business aspect of creativity, like in advertising, we can already see that if somebody says, let's be creative, it could encompass siguro some resources. It could add towards the overhead. A lot of resources would be put into it. And when we're talking about business, it's strategic. So, and hindi siya pwedeng feel. Diba? All we know is, I feel I like it. This is beautiful. This moves me, which is fine. We're all, we're all fine-tuned, or we're all wired to know all of this. And this is what I tell my students. Everybody here knows what they like. Everybody here knows what they don't like. But when it comes to articulation, why? Those are the things that I think falls between the cracks. If we're not able to articulate or identify some aspects of why an object is, or a concept is so, and it's going to be a hit and miss, whether we're able to recreate it, especially for doing it for commercial. So let me share with you my journey into looking at advertising creativity, which basically revolved around asking some basic questions. Una-una, what is advertising creativity? Is it different from creativity in general? Is it is it individual, etc.? Is it based on the way that we process the place, or the way that is it based on an output? Are there key issues, or do we just accept them? Where in consumer processes would it contribute? Because I do know everybody here at one point in their lives will say, wow, ang ganda, or I was moved. But in the business sense, we'd like to ask siguro, how did it move you? At what point of the consumer journey did it move you? Did it move you towards that all important change of attitude or persuasion or purchase behavior? And being someone into media as well, I would like also to look at how media contributes. What type of media? If it's either interactive digital media, traditional media, etc., etc. And of course, after this, after all is said and done, this is a nice thing. How can I foster my own creativity? Or how can creativity be fostered in organizations? So I started by diving into what's available out there. What is creativity? What's advertising creativity? So I start with this particular small short paper that I co-authored with my colleague, Dr. Ryan Dewey, having a narrative review of it on its role in consumer purchase behavior. So the first question that we would ask siguro is, what is advertising creativity? The literature says that it's vital for standing out in saturated markets. It differentiates brands in cluttered advertising landscapes, which we all can agree with. But there's still some ambiguity, or there's some questions, right? Exactly. Does AC truly influence consumer purchases? Because you can go out there and do a search about advertising creativity and if its effectiveness, and we have information or answers from 2 different sides. It does matter, it does not matter. So there's that ambiguity there. So like I said here, prior findings are mixed. Sometimes I do not look at my decks. Okay. So this purpose of this first preliminary study was to try to synthesize the literature. explore consumer perceptions, and clarify its impact on purchase behavior before I went to something a bit more guided. Of course, if you're doing a narrative, a literature review, it had to be driven by a theoretical lens. How are you going to be looking for concepts? And I looked at HOE, elaboration likelihood model, dual process theory, etc., which provided me with my literature map and the things I could get from the concepts that I could squeeze from them. And from this particular preliminary process, I was given this, I was illuminated with this preliminary insights that advertising creativity is not just art. It's not art for art's sake. It has a purpose, especially if it's advertising creativity. There's ad relevance, there is consumer relevance, there is brand relevance. And this shows with the core dimensions, which I took for my next study, that advertising creativity is made out of, is a bipartite definition, can be defined in a bipartite way. That we have originality and divergence. When we say divergence, something moving away from the norm, right? Divergent and something unique or unexpected. And that covers fine arts. That covers art as we know it. But what is added here would be appropriateness and relevance. Relevance to the brand intention. Relevance to the consumer needs, right? So I stuck to that. This resonated with me really, really, really strongly. But other dimensions also came about, like artistic value, elaboration, synthesis. But what I did get from that would be that balance is required to catch attention and communicate meaning with purpose, with intention. So going through that, I was able to uncover from existing literature. AC provides attention and recall, provides emotional engagement, improved brand attitudes, brand differentiation. But there's a warning there, wherein creativity overwhelms the message, the advertising message. And you might be asking why there's vampire. Okay, what happened, right? What happened, right? So vampire creativity happens when an ad's creative elements, the humor, visual storytelling dominate so strongly so that they distract the brand message. And I'm sure all of us are guilty with this. Whoa, that was nice or whatever. That was really exciting or whatever. But nothing resonated later on. Right? And the literature says as well that there's still that idea of the purchase intention gap. And probably the disconnect happens because AC improves attitudes, but it has indirect purchase effect. And there's also a thing to keep in mind that it's mediated by existing brand attitudes and the clarity. If we go back to relevance, clarity of the message. So why would it happen? There may be weak call to action in the advertising stimuli, and that idea or concept that entertainment is equal to persuasion, which is actually not. It doesn't mean somebody is entertained, somebody will believe what you are saying. So there is call for research. There's call for more things to be uncovered, right? Also, there's that gap because context matters. There's cultural differences. Like, for example, when we're looking at Western cultures, they prioritize originality. Eastern cultures prioritize value, harmony, unity. Right? It also is based on product type. Now, later on, I'll talk about product type some more because I took this to heart. That when it comes to advertising creativity, we would see it more in emotional storytelling or products that have an hedonic value or pleasurable value to consumers, or something that's utilitarian, or what we would say high, what do you call that? It's there in my other deck, don't worry, lalabas siya. And also that AC's effect towards going towards purchase is also mediated by the media format. When we're looking at it, that videos are able to communicate emotional narratives. When it comes to print display, it's more of visual novelty. Social media encompasses interactivity. So this short, this short study gave me some takeaways that there has to be alignment of creativity with brand goals to be able to measure recall, sentiment, conversion, knowing your audience's culture and habits. That's coming from the context and knowing our target market. And there is going back to that idea of relevance and divergence, balancing originality, relevance, and emotion. Right? So the literature that was taken together called for additional. There were more questions, which is what we want lang naman talaga when it comes to research. Yeah. Diba? If you do your UAI, it's not something that will solve your brand problem already. It would be nicer that, oh, this is nice, but there are some questions there. There's things that we could explore, and that's what we like. We do not shy away from deviations. We do not shy away from outliers because often they open up new avenues for inquiry. Okay? Now, me putting them all together, I came up with lang something of an illustration lang that we have advertising creativity towards consumer purchase behaviors, which will be affected by mediating variables, consumer attention, cognitive processing, emotional engagement, brand attitudes, and could be moderated by cultural context, product type, and media platform. But this was just a scrap then. So the conclusion is AC is both artistic and strategic, boosts attention, recall, attitudes. Direct purchase impact is still inconclusive. Creativity is a key performance variable. So that idea that direct purchase impact is still inconclusive. You can look at it whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. But if you look at AC, and it will show naman later with my other slides there. I mean, AC is not there to be a silver bullet or to be the hero of the day, to be able to move towards brand intention. It's part of a bigger whole. Which brings me now to my main paper. Now, armed by this narrative review, I sought to look at advertising creativity and try to figure out where along the hierarchy of effects process model would it be more apparent, right? So we remember, I'm looking at advertising creativity from the bipartite definition because there's so many definitions. And one of the first things that you should do when you are trying to study creativity is know, for example, now there are different ways of looking at it. Like creativity from the individual, creativity from the process in organizations, creativity of etc. 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 One of the first things that you need to do is be able to determine what aspect of creativity you're looking at. And in my case, it's advertising creativity. And from the literature, the bipartite definition of divergence, which refers to the extent to which an ad contains elements of novelty, originality, unexpectedness, newness. You see there characteristics of a divergent ad. It's original, it's flexible, there's elaboration, synthesis, there's artistic value, it's already there. And relevance. Ad to consumer relevance. Brand to consumer relevance. Ad to brand relevance, which frames advertising creativity, makes it have a purpose, not to just to entertain, not just to make people feel, right? But have a primary purpose, in that case, to bring about the brand's intention. So I initially started with this particular conceptual framework. Advertising will affect awareness, learning, and remembering items. These nga pala are the different levels for the hierarchy of effects. We first have awareness. we have learning and remembering ad claims, and then we have consumers either accepting or rejecting those ad claims. We also have brand liking, and at the end, brand intention. I decided to also add the component of media use. In this case, looking at differential susceptibility to media effects model, wherein the media response states of people when looking at or when engaging in media is predisposed already based on their own conditional media effects. And we will look at the components. But basically, people will have conditional media effects such as they have the need for cognition, they are sensation seeking, or they are affective empathy. And based on that conditional effects, it would affect how well they respond from a cognitive, emotional, and excitative perspective. So I wanted to look at both of these things. How media is being used there, how it's being affected, if AC has a place there, before it goes towards the hierarchy of effects. So I'm asking, when and how does advertising creativity have a significant effect on advertising effectiveness as observed through the hierarchy of effects? The main question there. And I have some questions there. Additional questions like, does advertising creativity significantly affect consumer media responses towards interactive digital ads? And does responses in using interactive media as affected by AC subsequently affect the levels of the hierarchy effects of advertising? And one more ad siguro, in which of the stages would it be more apparent? Right? Siguro you're asking, why is it important to to look at the stages, what particular stages? Because like I said, deciding to go to jump into advertising creativity involves the moving of resources. And it should be guided by, empirical studies or empirical by data. Where is it more appropriate? So pag hindi naman sa awareness, we should be putting it for brand liking. Or if it's not for brand intention, we should put it in learning and remembering ad claims. But the study will illuminate us where exactly. So this is how it looked like. This is how the operational framework looked like. We have the media effects of need for cognition, going to cognitive response, sensation seeking, excitative response state. This is cognitive response state, being able to process more information. Excitative would be something about there's a physiological effect na excite ka or tumaas yung yung pressure mo or whatever. Parang it's connected physiologically. And then with the emotional response state. So I'm trying to see whether advertising will moderate these these relationships. But of course, I also try to go, what if it went straight to response states? And then through these response states, when they're affected by advertising creativity, which of the HOE levels will be affected the most? Awareness, learning, accepting, brand liking, brand intention. And the same thing for excitative there. All right, so I did an online self-report survey with 200 target sample size of Gen Y. And one of the biggest the first hurdle, kasi you could see already where I'm going, that maybe I'm going to be showing my participants an ad, which is true. That was what I was planning. So one of the biggest questions would be, how do you identify an appropriate ad, creative ad, that will give you those answers, right? Especially given that creativity is very, very subjective. So the challenge was identification of ad output. The available research said that high involvement product categories, brands and specific outputs that people feel they are relevant to them, was where advertising creativity was more prevalent. That's from the literature. But I wanted, given that this literature are usually sourced from the western part of the world, I needed information, I needed confirmation from a local perspective. So I needed confirmation from industry experts. So it started with trying to look at high involvement products. And you can see here, I identified high involvement products: laptops, real estate, smartphones, household appliances, motor vehicles, and fashion, right? Sa taas, we can see laptops, real estate. This should say to me that I should look at ads that communicated brand messages for laptops, for real estate, for smartphones. But we all know here naman na in the Philippines, that's not the case. Sometimes the most creative ads will not come from these. And I've talked to real estate marketers as well, that this is not it's not as prevalent in their industry. So there was something missing there. So I chose to go have a conversation with copywriters, creative directors, chief creative officers, chief executive officers. We had 25 years experience in advertising. So I was talking to them, where do we find creative ads? What I showed them that the literature says is high involvement. And they told me naman that we should not limit the study to high involvement products. Kasi iba din sa Philippines. We see more creative ads in different product categories. A place to start would be to look for winners in the to go through winner lists of award-giving organizations such as the Kidlat Awards. And ultimately, if they were asked, I was asking them, how would you identify creativity, or etc. What would ultimately be the would have the last say of creativity? They said, from different perspectives, it ultimately falls from the gaze or perspective of the target market, whether the target market finds that ad is particularly creative or not. So therefore, armed, I initiated the search for appropriate stimuli. So I went to this particular study was done siguro a year after the pandemic. So medyo it was limited when it came to creative output. As you can see siguro here, dated na yung mga ads ko dito, whatever. But I did an initial survey to try to have respondents not vote or determine which of these ads would be of highest or would be representative of advertising creativity in its finest. There was divergence scores, there was relevant scores with the AC average, and we can see here 4.46 was the highest Star Wars experience for all. You can see that Levi's studs medyo mataas pero natalo pa rin siya. Story of Us or Kwentong Jollibee medyo natalo pa rin. And maybe we could see kasi Levi's studs has a specific target market, right? And I was looking at the wholeness of Gen Y. And a Star Wars experience for all was Globe. So it was pretty generic. There was a good story, but it does not talk about a specific product line of Globe. It's for the whole thing there. And we all would have relevance for any of the products of Globe, whoever we are and whatever our needs would be. So with this, I was able to identify siguro this particular ad, and I was ready to gather my data. Okay, so we can go back to the basic research questions. Let's see what the answer is there. When and how does ad AC have a significant effect on advertising effectiveness as observed to the hierarchy of effects, and thus advertising creativity significantly affect consumer media responses towards interactive digital ads. The answer that was from the results led us to the answer that advertising creativity effects occur at the media response stage through its divergence and relevance dimensions, significantly engaging cognitive, emotional, and excitative media response states. It meant that moderation between the conditional and the response was not apparent. When we're looking at DSMM, there was no moderation happening, but AC directly affected the response states, right? So advertising bypasses, though it does not have that moderating effect, it goes directly to the responses, which is, I think we can already understand. Now, sometimes we go online, we watch TV, we have a plan, we have a purpose. And if something interesting comes into the picture, we are drawn to that. And this is what we're saying here. It adds towards the idea of advertising being able to reorient the attention of consumers, which is the whole purpose of advertising in the first place, right? So to explain that, here we can see that in the context of media entertainment, people expose themselves to content that's inconsistent with their conditional states. We also have the idea of selective exposure theory. Sorry. That individuals consciously invest attention to introduce stimuli, such as ads, which derails the original conditional media motivations of audiences. I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to that. Diba? I'm gonna study now. I'm gonna finish my assignment. I'm gonna do my my paper, whatever. Oh, that's nice, right? So it's natural. Okay. So based on the structural properties of media and advertising, it has been argued to trigger an orienting reflex. The way that the advertising has been designed, the way that it has been developed, it's really not our fault, because the way it has been developed, it has been structured. It went through art direction, it went through copywriting, it went through visualization, and a lot of ideation to make sure that an orienting reflex will happen, that you will find it more interesting than what you are doing right now. Now, for question number 3, does consumer responses in using interactive media media as affected by advertising creativity subsequently affect later on the levels of the hierarchy of effects? Okay, I'm asking here that cognitive response state, emotional response state, and what's the second one? Excitative response states, when affected by AC, will they be subsequently affecting the HOEs? Brand awareness, attention, will they affect learning and remembering ad claims, accepting, rejecting ad claims, brand liking, or brand intentions? Which of those? Right? Now, when it comes to excitative response states, getting our attention, getting our excitement up, having physiological effect on our bodies when we your pupils dilate, we orient ourselves towards a particular stimuli, is one of the strongest response states that led to HOE. We have excitative response states will have a positive effect towards awareness. It catches our attention, catches our attention, holds that attention so that learning and remembering can happen, and also goes towards brand liking. It has medium effects, and also it has also small effects on stage 3, accepting or rejecting, Small effects, stage 5, brand intentions or purchase. Now, we have to take the word small effects with a grain of salt, because it depends on the context whether that small effects is negligible or not, right? So it doesn't mean that it says small effects, negligible yon, right? There's no table we say na small effects, wala nang gagawin. It always has to be confirmed with the industry itself. So while small effects on HOE3 stage 3 and HOE stage 5 is there, although identified as small effects, it does not necessarily mean it's negligible. For the emotional response state of the consumer responses, it emerged as the best performing of all of the response states: cognitive, excitative, and emotional. Is emotional. It had the strongest with HOE stage 4, brand liking. By initiating emotional response states in our target market, brand liking is more likely to happen with a medium effect. Emotional response state as well will have a small effect on stage 1, if you remember, awareness. Stage 2, learning and remember ad claims. Stage 3, accepting or rejecting ad claims. And then we can see here on stage 5, purchase, no effect, right? Now, it could be argued that the lowest effect sizes, the less consumer response state that is affected least or by advertising creativity falls under cognitive response states, where we see almost all, except for HOE stage 1, which is awareness, it has a small effect, but for 2, 3, 4, 5, negligible or even negative effect. When we say negative effect, the more creativity you put in, the more you draw upon the characteristic of creative advertising in your particular ad, there may be a negative reaction. So let's now try to identify what stages. We know that AC affects all stages through the different major response states. They're all affected, but there's going to be different levels. So yeah, advertising creativity influences all stages, right? But the different consumer response dimensions will usually be more fitted to apparent to specific stages of HOE, right? While it affects everything, it is more apparent in specific stages. Right? Sorry, I had a call. My son. Right. Hold on. All right. So sorry, my son is calling me. AC has the most impact of the HOE stages of awareness, learning and remember ad claims, and brand liking. Those are the 3 HOE effect stages that are going to be most affected by advertising creativity. It has overall weaker effects on accepting and rejecting ad claims, and then brand intention. So knowing all those results, we try to look for reasons why. Bakit? Why does that happen or whatever? So when it comes to discussing the results, we go and do a secondary look at the available literature or state of knowledge regarding our study that would give us explanations for this. So we see already for HOE1 awareness, it's because AC related to it relates to increased attention and awareness. There's that contrasting effect which makes that ad stand out from the ocean of different ads. HOT, learning and remembering ad claims are increased because while you're being held by AC, you have that heightened attention and interest. Therefore, there's more processing happening. You'll be able to find out the ad claims more. You'll be able to remember it more. When it comes to brand liking, brand attitudes have been shown to be influenced by affective reactions, such as perceived entertainment value. Oh, I like it, there's entertaining, or it made me smile for the day, or oh, it really it touched my my interests, or this is exactly they're talking about me. This is exactly my vibe right now. So there's that brand liking happening there. Sorry. Now, accepting and rejecting ad claims and brand intentions were weaker, which is can be attributed to the fact that AC generally supports its positive effect on immediate responses, such as signals as perceived sender effort. Wait, this is wrong. Beyond the side information. Because these are more cognitive stages of the hierarchy of effects. Kasi iba na kasi if you're liking the brand, you're liking the ad, right? But when it comes to a buy-in already, there's some more things that you need to take into consideration. It's all good that I like the ad, I like the brand, etc. But it's about buying in already or bringing out my money for that. Usually, we would see that we need some more information. We would need to be more convincing. Okay? So, advertising campaigns with a more rational tone of appeal are designed to provide more information that will appeal to this particular appeals of reasoning for HOE stage 3 and HO5 brand intentions. Now, I added lang this that sometimes, I went through the NHST, but I'd like also to share that it doesn't stop with NHST and null hypothesis significance testing. To look into the what are small effects, what are medium effects, I went and presented my results to key informants. Right? So creative directors, marketing heads, and then I told them, eto po yung this is my insight of this. Is it true? And they would say yes, they agreed. They almost agreed naman. So going back to the original conceptual framework, now that's somewhat more enlightened with all of the results, all of the insights that I've received for this. I came now to cut it down that advertising creativity has a direct effect on media response states that goes towards awareness, learning, remembering, accepting, brand liking, and brand intention, of which the levels of strengths of these HOE stages are limited. So we see it in awareness, learning, brand liking, and brand intention. Now, this would give us advertisers a bit more of a grounded perspective on how to strategize. Let me move this na. I think that's going to be that's bothering you. It bothers me. All right? It gives us a better better footing to strategize where to input advertising creativity, especially given that advertising is never seen as one object. It's never seen as one artifact nowadays. It's always a campaign. It's always integrated by different marketing communications working hand in hand. So the conclusion of this particular paper would be advertising is designed to disrupt. Upon presentation of new stimuli in the form of AC, the response states are immediate towards the stimuli at hand. This disrupting potential of the online experience of audiences can subsequently bring about immediate response states. Advertising stimuli with high levels of AC are significant drivers to enable grabbing attention, communicating a message, and affecting emotion and interest to enable brand liking. We are also grounded in the fact that AC is not a silver bullet. It has limitations, as you can see doon sa different levels of HOEs, that it does not affect that, or it has a limited effect on those particular stages. It will not save your brand on its own. ACE's limitations in rational, deliberate HOE stages. These are accepting and rejecting ad claims and brand intention. These are rational, deliberate HOE stages. That more rational thinking needs to happen, right? I'm sure some of us have fallen victim to the nadala ako ng emotion, napabili ako, right? But sometimes siguro it depends on the price. It depends on how much you are going to be investing, which limits that particular that knee-jerk reaction. And that's where rational deliberate HOE stages come in. So I presented this study as a contribution to current knowledge gaps by investigating AC influence on HOE stages in the context of interactive digital media. We see here on the right the basic takeaways. AC grabs attention. It engages and entertains. You like the ad, like the brand, there's a positive experience. You like the brand, you like the ad, you like the brand, you have a stronger foundation. The consumer brands will have a stronger foundation to further engage their target market. Kasi gusto ka na nila eh. This is wherein you will be able to capitalize and provide more rational arguments within the IMC strategy. We get them first. We get them to like us. We capture their attention, right? We can therefore introduce more information, more brand messaging that will engage the rational side of the process. So recommendations or key takeaways siguro for this paper would be, we recognize the potential and limitations of AC within the campaign. The concept of effectiveness cannot be separated from media, and collaboration across disciplines for further discovery, investigation, and innovation is needed. I say this because integrating communication theories was not something that we at the marketing and we at the marketing side discipline would usually engage in. But if you look at it, we're talking about messages and how it affects people. There is that natural coalescence of ideas. And meaning that if we can get theoretical perspectives or critical lenses from other areas to look at what is happening in a marketing or business sense, coming from the CLA, liberal arts, coming from communications, it broadens the perspective. It opens up more questions. And I think my humble contribution, parang yan ang masasabi ko na we open our investigation to be more multidiscipline, multidiscipline in the way that we look at observe phenomena. Now, after my paper, after all of these, I still am invited to contribute to some papers or some columns. And recently, I've been invited to write a column for the Manila Standard. So I talked about when inspiration sleeps, ignition in a world of repetition, and how fostering creativity on organizations can happen. Given the importance of creativity, I talk to people, and I talk to people in the industry. They ask me, sometimes our creatives, they're stuck there. They do the same thing. There's nothing new happening, which is good. And I see it in organizations, because creative work becomes formulaic, repeating past styles. Designers and creators stuck in a safe zone of familiar outputs. The industry risk there is you lose novelty, you lose innovation, competitive edge. This was the problems that 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 enabled me to write about creativity in organizations, because this is what people were experiencing. Okay? Utility and routine overshadow novelty and experimentation. Some of the why does it happen as well? Another reason would be organizational culture may penalize mistakes, that there's no room for mistakes. There's no room for experimentation. There's no room for being crazy and coming up with something out of the box, right? And also the idea that creativity is seen as an individual trait rather than a systemic process. So if a creative director or a designer is in a creative route, people would usually say that it's his problem. It's maybe he's not tinatamad yan, or he's not inspired. But I argue that it is an organizational matter. It is a systemic process being part of a bigger organization. Outputs and research that are available right now say that teams open to collaboration plus exploring new routes equates to better outcomes. It started with that idea of copywriter and art director being put together. That's a collaboration, right? And opening up collaboration across teams, across people, and exploring new routes. When we're saying new routes, new creative routes, let's look at this way. Let's look at that idea this way. You'll be coming up with better outcomes. So this is what's called cross-pollination of ideas, mixing people, projects to avoid stagnation. Some organizations have also started practices by inviting other creatives into their fold just to mix it up a bit, just to get that cross-pollination happening. So what can we do as organizations for us to be able to foster creativity so that we do not lose our inspiration? We first foster diversified idea generation with rotating teams, changing it up, getting external collaborations like I mentioned. We encourage experimentation, like design sprints, passion projects, enabling people to give them time, you do what you want, or to have challenges bigla there. And of course, very, very important, number one, is accept the missteps. Experimentation towards the goal of creativity will involve people falling on their faces. And if you penalize that, people are going to be risk aversive. They will be staying in their safe places, scared to experiment, scared to explore. Therefore, stagnation manifests. And I'm sure I'm at the end of my deck already. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I'm open for your questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paolo Paredes, for a very insightful discussion. No, at this point, we are now opening the floor for questions coming from our audience. Do you have any clarifications? Anything that you want to ask? For our Zoom participants, you may use the raise hand function, and then we will be calling your name in order to deliver your questions directed to Dr. Paolo Paredes. So, are there any questions coming from our participants? Don't be shy. You can send it as a private message directed to me here, or you can send it as a public question as well. feel free to send in your questions. Anyone? So siguro I would like to start this with a very short question, Dr. Paolo. In this case, who determines how creative an advertisement really is? Since this is a very subjective concept and variable.
Thank you for that question. It is very subjective, and that was one of the first questions that was asked of me. Right? Who determines, you or whatever? There's no single arbiter, I would say. No, creativity is judged by multiple stakeholders. But in the context, siguro, of the intention of ads, we can ultimately say siguro that it's going to be determined by your target market.
So
Ultimately,
it's very important that we still listen to our target market at the end of the day, no, Dr. Paolo?
yes, yeah, like marketing is very, very consumer oriented, centered process. We have to have our ears on the ground. We're talking about communication. We need to be knowing the language and the pulse of those we are talking with or we are communicating with.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Dr. Paolo. Any other questions? Meron pa po ba? Okay, I see that there's a question here. In advertising scholarship, there have been criticism that has been directed towards the ad industry as very self-serving. How can we as communicators and educators use advertising creativity to show that the industry has a social function aside from its commercial purpose? For example, the Basta ad of RC Cola used disruptive messaging like Ampon Ako, but at the end of the day, no efforts were made to address either the issue of orphans or indigenous people in our country. Dr. Paolo?
That's a really, really nice question. Yeah. This brings us back to the whole purpose of advertising and business in general siguro. Which I was also in this particular uh side of the question. I was me asking that because if you look at my my CV, I was all arts. My question would be why? What does it contribute or whatever? But I would think that we need to step back and be critical of our creative strategies for advertising marketers to keep in mind, diba? Of course, at the forefront of development, it will always seem to be in the industry the business aspect. But we need to keep in mind and be mindful because all problems and negative feedback stem from not being mindful enough, not being but looking at the bottom line, looking at formulaic processes like automatic that's happening. It works, let's do it again. It works, let's do it again. It worked for that brand, let's do it again. A more mindful look regard of everything is very, very important, especially when we are framed by the fact that communication is such a powerful tool. We have that power to, I tell my students, I taught you this already, use it responsibly. We have a responsibility, we have a social contract. We are only allowed to continue business, continue what we are doing because society allows us to do so. We have responsibilities to keep the norms, to keep what people are believe in their advocacies. So we have to be grounded with the social contract. When it comes to other brands that open up narratives of advocacy or issues, they have to have a follow-up. They have to follow through. Especially if do not just leave people with an idea like the ampon or whatever, then stop it there. There has to be a follow through. Yeah, that's why it needs to be thought out more. We're opening up this up in the conversation. Maybe it's a responsibility to follow through with other activities, other ads that will move towards that advocacy. Kasi if we just say something and then leave it for people to come up with their own messages, I think we're gonna get some more issues than that. So what RC could have done siguro is, they had a disruptive creative message that sparked debate. And that had to be followed through, in my opinion. Right? It's like siguro partnerships and advocacy regarding that. And it's so easy to do that naman eh. Kasi you have your particular ad. There's so many other mediums that could accompany that ad to support it for more information, join the conversation. This is what we're doing. There's no reason not just to say blah and then we leave. I mean, we have the responsibility for that. That's my thought on the question.
But to follow up on that, considering that it has been a part of many conversations, the presence of artificial intelligence, or the use rather of artificial intelligence in a lot of industries, do you think that the mere presence of AI happens to have an effect on the advertising creativity of agencies nowadays?
Well, for the question, it would have been really would have given you a lot of valuable for you siguro if you join my webinar Tuesday, wherein we talked about that specifically. And the resonating, I teach graduate studies and then advertising visualization. And for last Tuesday, we had AI and I. That was the whole title of the webinar. And we're trying to navigate siguro how is creativity and AI coming together? What is the whole point of everything there? The resonating idea that came about was co-creation. Co-creation. There is either we have AI as a co-creator of what we are doing. One of our guests there nga, I'm not gonna say from what agency, said nga that they are encouraged to use AI in as many aspects of their work as possible. They're even given a stipend, or they're given funds para pag subscribe ka, you can get it back from them. But none of the AI produced output is to be published. AI is being used to bring about ideation, bring about variation, bring about that whole experimentation, right? And you have to remember, it's gonna help with co-creation kasi it opens up the universe of possibilities. I remember when I was doing this advertising design, and I know I'm dating myself, but I had to draw everything. So you have to come up with not just one, but a lot of variations. And if one is rejected, everything is rejected, and then you have one rough there, or composite comp there that has potential, you have to redraw it again. I thought I was already being high-tech by doing, change the color pa. Oh, no problem. I'll just photocopy it. Pero I'm gonna color it with poster paint. Mga ganon. And I say this to my students as well. Especially those with in that my advertising students in Mad PPR and marketing students. I mean, the affordance given to us by the technology of Photoshop or Adobe enables you to come up with so many variations of an idea. That means there's so much space for experimentation. So what does that mean? Don't be scared. Pwede ka naman magkaroon ng final 1, final 2, final 3, final 4. Ano pa ka? It's okay to nitpick. But at the extreme, I've been part of groups that have never ended because of that affordances. Tapos na. No, I'm still not happy. Sometimes that's why there's deadlines and milestones that needs to be taken into account. But co-creation, we use AI as a tool, and even Adobe and even all of the software we've been using have already been early examples of AI. Magic Wand to get all of the spaces. Wow, that's AI. Or right now, generative remove the background. That's what it's going. It's about how you are going to be using it as an artist, as a creative individual. It's a tool. And tools have always been moving forward. Diba? We illustrate, and then we have photography, and then etc. We have video or whatever. We move for the development of technology. It will ultimately change the way that we work, and we accept that. Right?
Okay, thank you very much for that, Dr. Paolo. We have a question coming from Miss Emma Lourdes Mones. Nothing is new anymore. True, this is all about our market. But how can creativity be novel when nothing is new anymore?
Then go the other way. Go the other way. Nothing is nothing's new anymore, and that has already been a statement siguro even during the time of I wouldn't say that the modern artist, nothing is new anymore. Maybe it's based on we have new configurations, we have new ways of, I have the same thing but I'm using it in a different way. It's about paano mong lalaruin yan right? That's how an idea has been there for a while. Look at it from another perspective. That's why if you want to be creative, I suggest you open yourself up to be a kaladkarin, to different experiences. Pag may nag-invite sa'yo ng exhibit or punta sa park or whatever, go, read or whatever. Kasi you're gonna be looking at the same object in a different perspective. Yeah, all of the things that we have here, nothing's new. But when you get a spark, I can use this in a different manner, or this could mean something different. That's only limited by your own imagination, and your imagination is driven by how open you are with different experiences. So thank you for that, Ma'am Emmy.
Okay. Let's move on to this one. It's more of a comment and a perspective rather than a question. This one coming from Miss Tony Paredes. Hi, sharing my POV about the question earlier. Advertising and creative work always depend on the client's goals and requirements. For example, in the case of RC Cola, the main objectives were to capture attention, drive brand recall, and generate buzz and engagement. Being a trend-based campaign, the audience today is naturally drawn to what's uso, wanting to be part of what's popular or talk about. And it's not always about deep messaging. Sometimes it's about creating cultural relevance and participation. That said, sensitivity remains important. While some campaigns may spark debate or different interpretations, it ultimately comes down to personal perspective and point of view on what resonates or offends. This is actually a great summative of what the previous questions have been delivered, connecting the importance of the message, connecting relevance and the continuity of not just saying what you wanted to say at the first glance, but something that could go on, and that would benefit not only those that are a part of the brand but also the consumer base. So, okay, I think we have two more questions, or rather, we have room for two more questions. Another question that this one wanted to go anonymous. Sir, please hide my identity. I would like to ask Dr. Paolo. Scholars note that while advertisements can reflect long-standing stereotypes and judgments embedded in society, they can also signal changes in culture that invite more diversity. How does this factor in your study?
That's a nice question. I'd like to say siguro first a comment on Tony Paredes' a comment. I mean, sakit na yan Pero really good insight, dear. Right. So for this question, if you look at connected with my study, we will see that excitative and emotional responses were the most affected. And saan ba galing yung emotional responses, excitative responses? This suggests that creativity engages audiences at the level of passion and identity, touching values, beliefs, advocacies that shape how people interpret messages. because these emotions are tied to, you know, self-concept or how they see each other and social meaning of what's happening around us. This leads us advertisers to be more sensitive to how creative expressions can either reinforce stereotypes or challenge them. That's how it that involves that. Siguro that the results of the study, I think, aligns with that question kasi dun siya malakas. So we have to take be more conscious of that of that aspect.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Paolo. And with that, actually, there are a few more anonymous questions. Hi, I want this to be anonymous as it's only a curiosity-based question. How to apply these learnings to something that is only straightforward advertising? Let's say TikTok ads that are one-level advertising that isn't really creative but connects easy with the consumer.
Yeah, I guess siguro we can look at the other criterias of creativity when it comes to the divergence when it comes to aesthetic appeal, right? So it engages awareness and attention because of that aesthetic appeal. It's something different. It first gives your TikTok output that way to an ability to stand out first. And I'm sure in the TikTok era, in the TikTok environment, we are drowning in all of that content. And that's what we're able to get AC into something of that stimuli, such as TikTok videos. I think it's still clearly aligned with no matter level you are going for. Kasi no matter what level you're going for, you of course want to be noticed. And you of course you want to have your intention be communicated. Right? So, yon, I think the characteristics of advertising creativity of divergence and relevance are still going to be very appropriate. You have to tie it lang din siguro is how is it appropriate to your brand? How is it appropriate to your specific target market? What is their language and how does that translate? Right?
Thank
So
you.
I want to say that creativity does not have to be, mind-blowing or mind-blowing or something that will change the world, It has also that levels, yeah. As long as it does its job, it's effective. And that's what advertising is really. It's really grounded by effectiveness.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Dr. Paolo. This will be our very last question. And this is something that I think is quite interesting and very timely. Please make me anonymous. How about advertising creativity in political ads or campaigns? Do you have observations about similarities and differences in the way marketing is conducted? What would make for a good political campaign ad? Wow, very timely, no? With all of the hearings that we've all been
Grabe,
watching. Sige, Dr.
grabe.
Paolo, what's a good
First of all, I think sa political advertising, I think those are one of the outputs na talagang kailangan sabihin na pag AI generated. That's one of the things there. I'm sorry, how does AC fit in there in political ads? Well, I think the output themselves gives us that answer, and I think those who are producing these ads make it such a strong point to know yung kiliti ng kanilang audience and what will resonate with them. So I'm sorry, John, is there specific question there? I think I lost the gist of
I
it.
think they wanted to ask, are there any similarities and differences in the way marketing is conducted in terms or in the point in the perspective of political ads or campaigns?
Oh, it's the same thing lang naman. But we want to say siguro when it comes to advertising and marketing, we are we are regulated to be we have strict regulations to adhere to, right? But when it comes to the intention and to get awareness and going through the hierarchy of effects, we will see that they're very very much similar. Get attention, being able to to come about with learning and memory and learning and remembering the claims of the of that particular political campaign, accepting those campaigns or those claims, they're all the same there. Pretty much there. One of the one of the basic in some of my classes when it comes to advertising visualization, I find a very very deep well for my topics looking at propaganda art, because this basically is the same. It's about persuasion. It's about getting attention and then trying to go about behavioral change. But in this sense, propaganda, there is less subtlety. So there are things that there's a reason why I share it to my students for them to be able to see the components of persuasion. Okay? Yun na lang din. Sorry, I hope I answered your question.
Okay. This would be the very last snap kasi this came from our Q&A functionality. Based on the key takeaways of your study or maybe your experiences, what can you advise to avoid the perils of standardizing creativity and still make it within human capacities? Given that its movement and function within an agency and organization can easily fall into rigid operationalization to abide by deadlines or to keep reaching targets or KPIs.
Yeah. I mean, that's a real thing. That they have KPIs, they have targets. I mean, I think it's just the same idea as life in general. I would like to say, find your moments. Find your moments to be able to look at things more critically. And whatever the noise is there, I mean, try. Yeah, I think that's, if you want to look at my read my column about that. In a world where you are overwhelmed with everything, these deadlines or whatever, that there's no room for your own expression, no room for experimentation. What we can do is, find those moments. Find those moments wherein you can input them. But siguro as well, communication is also the key. To be able to get people to understand where you're coming from, so that dialogue is open. So there's going to be a more conducive environment. Kasi if you're adding towards, no, I have no time to talk to you, I have to do this or whatever, you're just adding to that whole mechanical automatic environment that's happening there. But if you sometimes open up now, can we talk about this for a while, or I have an idea or whatever, just for a few seconds, it might catch on. Right? It might catch on, or that idea that there's a time to be mindful and take step back and then look at things first. Like I said, find those moments. They can be smaller, but later on it could be they could be longer or bigger. It could be in a perfect world later on, or if it catches on, it may be institutionalized as an organizational cultural change. Right? So I would like to say lang to you, whoever asked that, don't lose hope. Yeah, it's like, it may seem like that, but if you keep it in the conversation, maybe we have time to do this. We have time to, can I analyze this or criticize this or look at this in a critical way for whether can we try to do things differently? And even if the answer would be no, but if you continue to do that, I mean, the idea is planted. And I would like to say that organizations who choose not to open up to that idea of those moments, or a room for creativity, room for collaboration, or whatever. I would like to argue that it would be, I'd like to say that they would be falling behind. I would say they may be hitting all the deadlines, they may be hitting all the KPIs, but when it comes to organization of culture, quality, and how it outputs, how it translates towards uh practical outputs. I think those who are more open, and if you look nga at all of the places to work in, best places to work in the world, they will have all of these in place, not just a pizza for everyone, right? Not just something that will make people happy, but it is institutionalized into their culture, right? And I would think that these organizations will further be at the forefront rather than being left behind and then just looking at headlines.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Dr. Paolo. And that wraps up our open forum session. Thank you once again to our speaker, Dr. Paolo Paredes, and the participants for a very rich exchange of ideas. And at this point, we would like to take the time to recognize the invaluable contributions of our resource person. PACMRI proudly awards the Certificates of Appreciation to our distinguished speaker. The Philippine Association for Communication Media Research Incorporated awards this Certificate of Appreciation to Dr. Miguel Paolo Paredes in recognition of their valuable time and expertise as resource speaker for the masterclass titled Advertising Creativity, Revisiting the Hierarchy of Effects Model. This live event is held online and is part of the PACMRI 2025's Masterclass series, given this 6th day of November 2025. Signed, Ms. Maria Rosel S. San Pascual, PhD, President of PACMRI, and Mr. Noel Sahid I. Murad, PhD candidate, the Director of Research, PACMRI. Okay,
Thank
thank
you
you
very
so
much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paolo. And we are great. We are deeply grateful for your time and effort and expertise that you shared with us this afternoon. And moving forward, since we are already reaching the end of our meeting, of our seminar, before we proceed to the last part of our closing remarks, the link to the paper of to the link of the paper presented by Dr. Paula earlier is available in our chat. So it was sent by Sir Noel Morad. So please check that out if you need further understanding of what has been discussed this afternoon. With that, to close our program, wait lang. To close our program, I will now call on Assistant Professor Noel Sahid Murad, the Director for Research of the PACMRI, for his closing remarks. Sir Noel, take it away.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, Dr. Miguel Paolo Paredes, thank you so much for graciously accepting our invitation to serve as the speaker for this special PACMRI Masterclass by De La Salle University. Your panel has reminded us that the power of advertising creativity extends beyond media response states of perceived divergence and relevance to the cognitive, excitative, and effective aspects of our lives, not just as consumers, but as active audiences and meaning makers of life itself. Ads are not only a form of persuasive communication that present ideas, but they also place a monetary value on creative ideas, as our Vice President from PACMRI, Dr. Julian, would say. More importantly, advertisements are not simply commercial text designed to persuade, they are also discursive constructions of social reality. And these ads have the potential to reflect changes in society, as Dean Hernan has shown in his vast research on the advertising landscape of the Philippines. Advertisements, therefore, are the perfect examples of the diverse roles that discourse can creatively fulfill in society. So while advertisements are shaped by society, they also shape society. As scholars, our challenge is to recognize the tensions surrounding advertising as an industry and discourse, moments where disciplines can clash in epistemology, ontology, and axiology, but also where they can coalesce in interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary harmony, sabi nga ni Dr. Pau kanina. So by situating advertising creativity in the wider fields of linguistics, media, communication, marketing, and business management, among others, we underscore the potential of ads as a discursive site of societal transformation. So maraming salamat once again, Dr. Paulo, for taking the time out today. Thank you also to Sir J.L. Robes for helping host and moderate today's masterclass session. We had a very engaging and fruitful discussion earlier. So thank you for all those who sent their questions. I'd like to also take this opportunity to acknowledge our institutional partners who are present with us today. So these are the following: Angeles University Foundation, College of Communication, New Era University, Immaculate Conception I College of Arts and Technology, Lyceum of the Philippines, University Manila, Lyceum of the Philippines, University Cavite, National Council for Children's Television or NCCT, San Beda College, Alabang, Wesleyan University, Philippines. So maraming salamat for sending your representatives to today's session. We have many more masterclass sessions in store for you, lalo na sa December and November. So do follow and like our Facebook page to stay updated. Next week, we're gonna have Cultural Signs and Changing Times, and Reconstructing Language and Heritage in Pampanga with our institutional university partners at Angeles University Foundation. So for those of you who still aren't members, we hope you can consider joining PACMRI as we have many more activities that we hope to collaborate with you all. And once again, on behalf of PACMRI, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us.
Okay, thank you very much, Sir Noel, for those meaningful words. Again, we extend the invitation to all our members to join the upcoming masterclasses and other collaboration projects of the PACM. And at the same time, for those interested like me, let us join and be a member of PACMRI.